I still have one more weekend on the West Coast with my kids because they're coming down. But I have to tell you, being down there for 3 weeks, Sarasota, if you missed the news that they made the international news too, that everybody has problems with homeless issues and how to handle them. It's certainly not unique, to this city, and they're very, very visible in their downtown core areas, but probably more so than ours. But it's a challenge, for everywhere. But I'll talk about that a little more in just a minute. But the tennis courts at Derbyshire and what we heard tonight, I think part of, Jim's addressed how we're going to handle the financing and getting everything done on that. But what it pointed up is what we've talked about before. It is critical that we make sure we budget for maintenance of all of our city-owned properties and that we do it on an ongoing basis. And it gets ahead of us so quickly sometimes, and then you've got a major problem. So I just want to remind us of that as we're doing our budget hearings in the next few weeks, that it costs money. So we've got to make sure we budget enough, and those kinds of expenses come out of the general fund. And so we've got to address how we're going to pay for that out of the general fund. And we certainly need to continue going after grants, but, we're going to have to do some of that ourselves as well. I want to talk a little bit about homeless now from the standpoint of what the city does do, because I hear speakers get up over and over again and put out information that's not correct. Food at North Street, there's a hot meal given every single day. There are numerous food pantries throughout the city. Halifax Urban Ministries gives out food and food bags. Our Lady of Lourdes Church, and I could go on and on and on, in which there is food in this city every single day. Does it maybe not meet the need? But the fact is it does go on, and the city permits and allows it to go on. The city of Daytona Beach has permitted over the years over 200 shelter beds in the city of Daytona Beach alone. Shelter beds that can be used for homeless. How those agencies choose to use those beds may be the conversation that the advocates in the community need to be having with them. The Salvation Army alone is permitted for 124 shelter beds right now, today, in this city. If the priority for people in this community and those that speak to us every week is that those beds be used in another manner than what they're using them for, then I think the conversation needs to be with those nonprofits. The concern about day treatment or a day facility for the homeless, right now on North Street, it is part of their permit, and they are allowed to have that on site at their facility. This city granted that years ago. Again, if they choose not to use it for that, it should not be back on us. We have permitted, we allow those services in this city. This city commission for years has funded and continues to fund the streets team, which is for chronically homeless, primarily men. And we put funding in that every single year with the Salvation Army to provide shelter and work for them. We're doing it in all the redevelopment areas. Again, we are putting the money in. We are permitting and providing services. If it's not seen as enough, then the conversation should be with the nonprofits that have been given the permits by this city to provide those services. We are allowing it to take place. We are not hindering anyone, and we have put city funds in. And maybe we need to get a report from Salvation Army on how many we've served over the years and the funding that we have put in over the years as well, if people have a question about that. I think that's probably, no. The other thing I want to say is when we talk about the services people need and the homeless that come to us and speak, we all have compassion and feel for them. I think every one of us up here feels so strongly about wanting to do something. But providing beds, it's not enough. The case management is a piece that has to take place with that. That is part of the Marbit plan. It needs to be there. I know people are saying we still need the beds. I'm saying to you the beds are permitted in this city, and the conversation should be with those agencies that have been given them for permit. And that's it. So,
thank you.
Good comments, Pam.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And Ouija, nice comments earlier today, too. Yeah, it's amazing to me how little these people understand about what the city has done over the years and what we're doing now. All the other cities do almost nothing. We do tons, and we get yelled at. It's almost embarrassing. On Safe Harbor, I think there's an important observation we need to make at this point. That formula for funding did not include the people who live in unincorporated Volusia County. You lose Deltona and Port Orange, you're up to about 40% of the population. It's a point where the amount of contribution that we were required by the others, if everybody stayed in, is going to be not feasible. So we're going to need to start looking. I know Jim's talked about some legislation to do a food and beverage tax that could be used for funding operations. I think that's a nice long-term initiative, but we're going to need to start thinking about, since we've got people that may not participate, what is our plan be going to be? I'm not sure yet, but the more heads we have working on it, the better the likelihood that we can find something. Marie, on the TNR program.